Hello, this is Josh from Vitality Maximized, and I think that almost all diets fail in the long run. It really does make me cringe what people think, believe, and do when it comes to their dietary choices. Before we begin, please don't forget to like, smash that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and make any constructive comments that can be helpful for Vitality Maximized. So let us begin. One common and massive problem with many diet names out there is that they fail to supply sufficient amounts of minerals. Minerals could be your calciums, your magnesiums, your copper, your manganese, your potassium, or sulfur, or if we go to the ultra trace elements, we could be talking silicon, germanium, and the like. Or it could be severely lacking in certain vitamins, whether it's vitamin A as in retinol, or thiamine, riboflavin, folate, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin K2, and the like. Or it is insufficient in utilizing protein, especially your essential amino acids like leucine, valine, isoleucine, lysine, and the rest. Or, your diets could be pretty deficient in essential fatty acids. That is your omega-3 fatty acids like DHA and EPA, or it could even be your omega-6 fatty acids like arachidonic acid. So these are basic nutritional needs, and while today is not really targeting specific diets, you'll see a common thread that most diets typically fail to provide adequate certain number of minerals or a certain number of vitamins, or bioavailable protein, or sufficient essential fatty acids. Of course, there are also other nutritional needs as well, simply because some people like to debate this, especially the animal-based only people, right? That think that carbs or phytonutrients or fiber are not essential requirements to survive, so so they just shun it all together. But these things, just because they're not essential requirements, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be eaten at all, or whether they don't even have any beneficial roles, because we're not just here to just eat so we can meet our basic requirements. We want to meet and exceed our basic requirements. And sometimes, all these other needs, quote unquote non-essential needs, can be helpful in that respect. I'm sure many of them will probably disagree with me on this, but however, I hope as they continue to watch this video, maybe, just maybe, they will receive some illumination. Speaking of certain voices, especially the animal-based crowd of people, I would advise extreme care when it comes to diets and certain voices and narratives that I'll be really careful with the following, which I'll discuss about. There are about 6 of them. So the first one we're going to talk about is that the one, there's some who just say eat a balanced diet. This typically, in my opinion and in my experience, these people know absolutely nothing about nutrition and human energy. I don't consider them, intelligent in this respect. They usually spout quite a lot of rubbish from the three-letter agencies, and also the word balanced diet it's a very open-ended term, and people can easily think that if they're eating a McDonald's one day and then another day they eat like a salad, it could be considered quote unquote balanced. So it doesn't hold much water. I would dissociate yourself from such narratives. All right, the next one is there's some who tend to be animal food phobic. Yes, animal food phobic. Again, I do think these people know nothing about nutrition and human energy, and tend to spout rubbish from the three-letter agencies that tend to pinpoint that cholesterol is bad or saturated fat is bad and it clogs your arteries, and some of these other things that if we subject that to a long-term randomized controlled trial or any other controlled studies, they would find absolutely no correlation between these factors. And you can obviously look up online various people who throw a knee-jerk reaction to the saturated fat and cholesterol phobia. You can find them, but as just to conclude this, please stay away from these sorts of people, because they often really know nothing. In my honest opinion, they know nothing. All right, the next one. This is this might be a dig at some of the carnivore type people. They tend to throw the baby out of the bathwater with all plant foods. I do think that these people have a certain level of intelligence, as I have communicated and have been in group chats with many of these people. But it's extremely foolhardy to think that animal foods provide every physiologically needed nutrient, or that those eating styles would work for virtually everyone or for most people, to optimize their own energy potential and vitality. In my honest opinion, plant foods typically fill in the gaps where animal foods are missing when it comes to nutrients, and vice versa. So they're very complementary. And yes, this is a revolutionary act, but I find that in my experience that this is the case, and we could say that about many other individuals as well. So the next point, all right, we'll start with the one at the top, being the next one being tend to throw the baby out of the bathwater with all animal foods. These are your raw vegan, fruitarian, and vegans, and those sorts of people. In my honest opinion, these people have extremely low digestive capacity, and they usually defend that trait or factor, and they typically have also pretty low vitality and low awareness. Of course, I can't say this for everybody, but this is a typical feature that I find, and I see this in hair tests quite a bit as well. and a lot of recovering vegans, right? um, I think most people gravitate to this because they feel a sense of duty and to be environmentalists, or they might be appalled by what goes on in factory farms. While some of these things are extremely valid in terms of how animals are treated, right? The same can be really said for the various plant counterparts. After all, there are quite a bit of pests and species that are killed to produce crops, plant crops. So I really don't think that avoiding animal foods because of how they're treated holds much water, because it's also the exact same when it comes to plant foods, whether they like it or not. So, and then lastly, many in this camp claim that animal foods tend to cause cancer, and so far I have seen no long-term evidence that unprocessed meats, like unprocessed meats, have been linked to a higher rate of cancer. I know this can be a heated debate, and this topic probably will be discussed another time. But but this is some of the the narratives you're going to get from these people, where they throw the baby out of the bathwater with all animal foods. Please just stay away from them. Honestly, personally, stay away from them. The next one will be those who are nutrition agnostic and people pleasers, right? Typically, these people don't like to fan the flames, don't like to get people angry, don't want people that they gain some level of credibility to turn on them. However, in my view, I think this hurts their credibility. And personally, I question how much of a critical thinker that they are. Yes, there are lots of gaps in the field of nutrition and human energy. However, despite this, there's still a certain level of objectivity when it comes to nutrition. So, like, there's certain things that are factually correct and things that are that are not correct. So, like, I do prefer that you take a stand on something and be as objective as possible. It's better than being, nutrition agnostic and the people pleasers. This is my take. And the last one, this one's a bit harsh, but I have to say this because this one is a bit more advanced. But yeah, it's this focus on nutrient density. Personally, I was, many years ago in this camp, and I do appreciate a lot of the work that comes from people who follow paleo diets, ancestral diets, primal diets, right? I find them for the most part quite intelligent people, and I personally have learned a lot from them. However, as my knowledge of nutrition and human energy grew, I learned that just hitting RDA of nutrients by eating nutrient dense is not enough. It's really just not enough. There is a saying that you are what you absorb, and once I learned things about bioavailability, stages of stress, the autonomic nervous system, and even the oxidation types, which is kind of quite a bit of the theme of this of this video, right? In some cases, nutrient dense foods can cause a lot of chaos to the body rather than bring order to it. So yeah, it's a bit harsh. It's not, I don't think it's out of malice, but I think, I personally think that if they learnt more about bioavailability, stages of stress, oxidation type, then their positions will shift a little bit, in my view. Well, yeah, I think, but most of all, I think the most important reasons why diets fail almost all the time in the long run is that there tends to be a failure to acknowledge biochemical individuality. So it's not most people have this, I don't want to say, some people have this one size fits all. The others just make really, in my view, irrational comments about the whether carbs are healthy or proteins are healthy or whatever it is. Like there tends to be some, I call it irrational thought processes when it comes to this, and the only losers to this is the individual who is trying to seek answers to their own health. Another reason why diets also fail in the long run, because I think a lot of people fail to acknowledge that nothing stays the same, including your metabolism. Nothing stays the same. In fact, nothing stays the same at all. The body's always changing. The metabolism is always shifting, no matter how small, and this should reflect in your lifestyle or your diet, to respond to those changes. So the main theme of this video is to propose a new way. I don't say it's new, it's as old as anything, but it is a way that we can look at your dietary needs. And I would like to give Dr. George Watson high props for this, and much of this information I'll be sharing from now on is going to come from his book Nutrition and Your Mind. So there are a couple of key takeaways that we are going to talk about regarding Dr. Watson and Nutrition and Your Mind. Of course, if you want to buy the book Nutrition and Your Mind, I will leave the link below to where you can buy this book for your interest. So one of the key takeaways with Nutrition and Your Mind is, one is determining the oxidation type. Dr. Watson at the time used a blood test or certain blood parameters, and he found that the ones that were strongly associated with a fast oxidation type and a slow oxidation type was to use the serum pH, carbonic acid, as well as partial CO2 levels. So fast oxidizers tend to have a lower serum pH and higher levels of carbonic acid and partial pressure of CO2, carbon dioxide. So the basic rationale for this is that cellular respiration is basically glucose plus oxygen equals water and carbon dioxide. So fast oxidizers in that sense produce or burn glucose quite quickly, hence they will be producing more carbon dioxide, and slow oxidizers produce glucose more slowly or inefficiently, and that produces less CO2. So this is just a simple way, or I won't say it's simple, but it is a way that he determined the oxidation types, at least throughout this book. So that is with the oxidation type. The next one is to talk about the ultimate barometer of metabolism. The ultimate barometer of metabolism is not whether you are fat adapted, whether you're in ketosis, or whether you can fast for a couple of days, or it's not even your mitochondrial health. The ultimate barometer of metabolism is glycolysis, the ability to produce energy in the cytosol or cytoplasm. Why is this so? The glycolytic or glycolysis serves as a window to producing energy in the mitochondria in the Krebs cycle. And how this differentiates fast and slow oxidizers is that fast oxidizers are extremely efficient at generating energy in the cytosol, but they have a hard time producing acetate, right, in the mitochondria to generate or to keep their energy more stable throughout the day. So they have this wired but tired feeling. Slow oxidizers, though, are very inefficient at generating energy at the mitochondria. Not the mitochondria, at the cytosol, but they do produce enough acetate. However, with the acetate that they produce, they're unable to convert it for energy production. So they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. It's basically can't simply get up to gear. That's slow oxidizers and how they produce energy in the cytosol and in the mitochondria. So that is one big difference between fast oxidizers and slow oxidizers, the rate that they build energy from the cytoplasm. All right, so the next one is the importance of protein. On his book, Dr. Watson only just mentioned protein because protein can help make glycogen for the liver, and obviously glycogen in the liver helps maintain blood sugar levels, and this is irrespective of the oxidation type. So no matter your diet must include high quality protein. So that's with protein. The next one will be a new one. Some of you have heard this, some of you have not heard this, but it is called nucleoproteins. So nucleoproteins are proteins bound to nucleic acids being DNA and RNA. What makes a food, or the importance of nucleoproteins is that the nucleoproteins or nucleic acids can either be purines or pyrimidines, right? And some of the constituents of purines are or the most important one is adenine. So an adenine is a constituent of acetate. So all the oxidation reduction reactions that occur in the mitochondria, such as NAD plus to NADH or FAD plus to FADH, right? One of the main constituents is obviously acetyl-CoA, right? And adenine is a constituent of acetyl-CoA, and adenine is a purine. So it is very safe to say that purines are very important for the functioning and the production of acetate. And acetate is we'll get to acetate, but it's basically an intermediary that helps us, generate energy. So foods typically high in purines are things like organ meats like liver, kidney, heart, as well as sardines and anchovies. Foods fairly moderate in purines are meats, especially red meats like lamb and grass-fed beef, or there's chicken and other poultry. And then slightly lower down the spectrum, you'll have things like eggs and dairy. And then foods low in purines are typically like your plant foods. All of them are typically very low in purines. So this is very important. So how this relates to the fast and slow oxidizers is that fast oxidizers produce more acetate, so that means they'll need more purines in their diet, and slow oxidizers typically need or will need a bit less purines, simply because they simply cannot release that enough acetate in the body to produce energy. So that is with nucleoproteins. Other key takeaways from his book has to do with acetate and intermediaries. One thing to learn about acetate is that it is, an intermediary that helps us generate energy. People think that energy is produced from glucose, energy is produced from ketones or fructose or whatever. No. Energy is derived from, acetyl-CoA, acetates, oxaloacetate. These are the things that participate in the chemical reactions that help us produce energy. And with acetates, the fat in the diet tends to yield the most acetate, then protein, then carbs. I know that if we want to talk about energy metabolism, there's more to it than just talking about acetate and oxaloacetates. But Dr. Watson I believe he just simplified, the energy pathways regarding, carbohydrates and glucose and, ketones and fatty acids. So I also just want to say that with fast oxidizers, since they are in need of more acetate in the body, they would need more fat in the diet, while slow oxidizers need to produce more energy from oxaloacetate and also from glycolysis in the cytosol, so they would need more carbohydrates typically. I just also want to make a clear statement that just because fat yields more acetate, right, does not mean that it is better. Acetate still needs to be utilized for energy, and at the end of the day, once it goes through all the steps in the mitochondria, it still needs to go through the citric acid cycle so that it can conduct cellular respiration. So we need the right amount of acetate and oxaloacetate so that we can perform cellular respiration more efficiently. So I hope this clears up, or makes a bold statement that it doesn't necessarily matter whether you must be in ketosis or you're more efficient, burning glucose. It is what is more important to help generate maximum energy so that the cells can do its job. and it is different it will be different for different people, and it also changes over time. The next one we'll talk about is psychochemical. Is the word psychochemical. Very early on in his book, he seemed to really have a dig at the psychiatry industry. But besides that, his book made a very strong case for the biochemical metabolic element of psychology. And yeah, every mental, emotional, psychological challenge always has a biochemical metabolic overlay that accompanies it. It would be foolish, in my opinion, not to consider this and not to act upon this. So yeah, let us continue. And then the next point is talking about external factors. By external factors, I'm talking non-diet, non-supplement factors. Dr. Watson had a couple of case studies. There was one that, where energy production plummeted, right? And, she had a bit of depression and all of that. And this occurred because one was taking sulfur drugs, which is an antibiotic. And another one was how the weather influences the oxidation type and rate. There was this one lady who I believe she always had the holiday, let's call it the holiday blues, if you want to put it that way, and she was just living on sugar and carbs, very little meat and fat. And then Dr. Watson advised her that she'll need to increase her fats in the diet, and then she got better during the holidays, yada yada yada. So this so it's just making a statement that the weather, right, though it does increase or does change or alter food requirements. Why do you think the Eskimos only live on meats and fats? Because they're in a cold, obviously it helps them to be more insulated, but it's also because they're living in a cold environment. If they were eating a diet of fruit and cereals, they'll be ill. So yeah, and other things that I read had to do with how toxic chemicals affect the metabolism. So any exposure to toxic substances affect the metabolism. Altitudes, whether high oxygen or low oxygen environments, and even nutritional supplements, right? How that affects the the metabolism and the oxidation rate. And even those who tend to gravitate to alcohol, obviously those who tend to gravitate to alcohol or have alcoholism issues tend to have a great need for acetate in their diets. And obviously one of the things that helps with acetate production is eating enough fats in the diet. Typically alcoholics don't eat enough fats to keep their energy levels stable, or they've been in situations where it has just disrupted their energy level to the point where they reach out for the alcohol. The different reasons. The last one is sleep. There was a short 4-page case study that he wrote here. There was this one man, his name was Jack, and he said by his wife was deemed to be aimless, directionless, and tends to jump from one thing to the other. So he starts things and doesn't follow through with them, right? So Dr. Watson ran some tests on him, and he found no issues per se. But one thing Jack was complaining about was that, he was getting tired, he was getting fatigued during the day, and he was finding it hard to get out of bed, right? And he was like so exhausted if he doesn't do anything. So Dr. Watson asked him how much sleep does he get a night. It was like, he said he had 5 to 6 hours, and he claimed that was enough. And then he wanted to use the example of one of his neighbors who worked 2 jobs and sleeps only about 4 hours a night, and he thinks he seems pretty, energetic. Obviously, Dr. Watson really brushed that comment off, and then he gave his sales pitch saying that without sleep, the nervous system can't function well at all. And after a few backs and forth, Jack, complied to increase his sleep, and then he slowly realized how tired he was. And then I think for like a period of a few months, he actually slept for 12 hours a night. And it got to the point where his wife, Jack's wife, called Dr. Watson and complained to him, right, that he's not talking to me, he's not spending time with talking to her, not spending time with her, and all of those things. Months later, Jack reached out to Dr. Watson, and he claimed I was a new person now, because obviously he got enough sleep, so that he got enough sleep consistently, which helped repair and rebuild his nervous system. So this also just points out, the importance of sleep and how it affects your metabolism and oxidation rate, and thus your ability to focus and follow through on things. All right, so the significance of Dr. Watson's work and the significance. So the first one is the powerful effects on foods and nutrients on the personality. I'll give a case study in his book where there was a PhD dropout, who basically had no ambition, was not reading books, wasn't growing himself, had no goals. And then he, interacted with Dr. Watson. And Dr. Watson first gave him a placebo pill, which he thought that, and obviously the placebo pill didn't actually create any desired effects, right? And then after a while, Dr. Watson now gave him the correct supplement that he wanted to give him, which was calcium pantothenate. So calcium pantothenate, and so after taking some calcium pantothenate, right, it looked as if his enthusiasm increased. He ended up quitting his job that he didn't like. He took time off to read. He reapplied for admission for graduate school, and 2 years later got a PhD in maths. He came back to Dr. Watson one time to say that his intellect and his mathematical creativity at 27 years of age was better than it's ever been. He also was able to write a dissertation in 3 months, and he also investigated which food habits and supplements would help support his mental activity at the highest level. So from there on, he was thriving quite well, and this just shows the power of just adding calcium pantothenate, and how this affected his ambition, his enthusiasm, and his drive. So folks, there is an immense power, an extremely immense power that nutrients have over our psychology and our personality. Like, I can't say this enough. All right, and then these two are kind of one and the same, but throughout the book, if you get to read it, there was a distinction that he made between fast and slow oxidizers, being the carbon dioxide levels, the pH, the serum pH, the carbonic acid, and to lesser degrees blood sugar and fats, right? With these, he was able to determine what type of diet and nutrients were needed to optimize the oxidation rate for maximum energy. So slow oxidizers will typically need more like, B vitamins, right? Fast oxidizers might need more like sedative nutrients like zinc and choline and vitamin A and things along those lines, right? Obviously, Dr. Reck, one of my mentors, used the work of Dr. Watson in his time and determined the oxidation rates using the sodium and magnesium relationship, which had to do with the adrenal glands, as well as the calcium and potassium relationship, which had to do with the thyroid. I think this is far more powerful and stable than using the blood pH or carbonic acid or CO2. That's in my personal opinion. So this is some of the significance of his work, and my questions to Dr. Watson and his book Nutrition in His Mind, I had to ask, like, what do you mean by sugar amino acids versus keto amino acids? Like, what's the differentiating factor? I am aware that it's a fairly underdeveloped science, but the competitive absorption nature of amino acids. Like, for instance, we know that aspartate and glutamate can be very excitatory, while things like glycine and glycine particularly tend to be more sedative in nature. But if someone has any like insight into the what determines which amino acids is burned as fat and acetate and converted to acetate versus those who are burned just like sugars and make oxaloacetate, right? Then someone needs to humor me on this personally. The next question, curiosity that I had is what makes organ meats a richer source of purines than muscle meats? So, like, what makes liver and heart and kidney more purine rich than, say, a sirloin steak or a chicken drumstick? I'm just out of real curiosity. And the last one, I don't know whether this is a question, but it's something, just something I'm still curious about. Like, his forward and a good part of chapter 1 was basically just throwing psychology under the bus. It was quite refreshing having to hear something like that. But yeah, why was he kind of throwing it under the bus? So so as we conclude, my closing thoughts is that next time someone or even yourself researches any diet in obviously in the quest of resolving your own health conditions and your challenges, while it's important to, you know, have to eat a diet that plays a role in resolving your health challenges, I think a bigger question to ask is this diet right for me for my current metabolism and my oxidation type? Does it cover basic nutritional needs, right? Does it assist my body in producing maximum energy? And also, it is important that, given that your needs can vary at any one point in time, right? You know, how often are you going to reassess your dietary requirements? Because, I just want to say that those are the most important questions to ask yourself. So this obviously is more, you know, I won't say complex, but it's more comprehensive than saying, oh, eat a vegetarian diet, eat a low-fat diet, eat a high-fat keto diet, or eat a carnivore diet, or eat something within that spectrum, whether it's paleo or whatever it is. Like, we have to ask which diet is right for you, and, you know, given that your body does not stay the same, how often are you going to reassess your dietary needs? All right, so we're towards the end now. The best way, in my personal opinion, to find out your dietary needs, right, at more comprehensively, is to do a mineral balancing program with Vitality Maximized. Right now, given that it's most likely now that my $125 offer is now ending, or is going to end at this time right now. It's probably going to end at this time right now. So our current rates, as we're charging per consultation, will be $260 for an individual. And if you want annual bundles, there will be discounts applied for, you know, picking or choosing to do an annual bundle with Vitality Maximized. Okay, so I just want to say thank you very much. Goodbye, God bless, and see you all again soon.